Satyan, what's the difference between...
Gautam, you leaving? Okay, great.
Okay. So what's the difference between Indiatimes and Times Internet Limited? I see there's a change in the...
Yeah, so this is just it's a little bit of a change, legacy, new, this, that. So that's our new logo up there. To be very honest, it wasn't exactly some well thought out, defined strategy. We were making new business cards and we were like, our old logo is kind of boring. So we told one of our designers, why don't you just do something fun with it? That you got to give me credit for there. No, so we told one of our designers, why don't you play with it, do something more fun and young. We tried 5, 6 different examples and came with this. The broader message for us, is it working? I'm just going to hold it. This thing is weird. The broader message for us, which is a little bit of a change, is that we've traditionally been Indiatimes as this one brand and everything as a sub-brand. And I think culturally we're not really there anymore. The way we like to think of ourselves, at least, is Times Internet is this company that operates a lot of different digital businesses, of which Indiatimes happens to be one of them. And then there are other ones. So timesofindia.com is one, Indiatimes is one, but Ghana.com is one, Box TV is one, our mobile strategy is a different one, and so forth. And so it's it's an evolution. It's not like everything's there right now, but it's a very non-humbling thing to say. But in the same way you think of Unilever as this sort of one brand with lots of sub-brands, we're at least starting to think of it, Times Internet, more in that direction, rather than everything is a sub-brand of Indiatimes, which is different from, say, a Yahoo or a Google, where most things are sub-brands of Yahoo or Google.
So how is that being manifested within the organization? I mean, Times Internet Limited is
most people know Indiatimes way more than Times Internet. The major way you'll see it show up is in the stuff we're doing, right? So some of our new businesses have no Indiatimes branding. In fact, a lot of times we avoid Times branding in them. So Ghana.com, one of my favorite feedbacks is when people are like, who's built this thing? Or Box TV, which is sort of one of our new video things that we're playing with. So for us, I think what you'll see as it amounts over time is that Indiatimes is a pretty strong property and it's doing its own thing and it's got its own strategy. So does TOI, so does this, so does that. But they should be strong enough independently to be viable businesses of their own, rather than all of them sort of saying we are Indiatimes therefore, or something like that.
So how does this play with the larger BCCL business, in the sense?
I mean, some of it does, some of it doesn't. I think to be very honest, I think this word. Yeah, sorry. I think synergy oftentimes is. Can you hear? I don't know if it's working.
We don't need that.
Anyways, I think synergy oftentimes is a little overrated. There's this idea that there should be this one consolidated strategy and everything has to align to like one principal idea, and I just don't think that's true. The internet is a place where there's so many dynamic things happening. Startups are able to move really quickly and nimbly because they're not burdened by some large infrastructure. In the same way, there are certain things that we do believe make sense at a horizontal or across divisions level, which are things around identity, things around understanding consumption patterns, things like that. But we really try to minimize the amount of overhead on any given business and let each business sort of run and drive and do what they're doing on their own.
So how does this work organizationally? I mean, each
so
business will have...
Yeah, so let me put it this way. I think there's 3 or 4 major changes that I would say TIL, or Times Internet, is doing. And so most of these will answer your question, right? So one of them is, I think we're moving away from being a company that was very content-centric. I feel like
I think you should.
I'm just going to like that. Yeah. I think we're moving away from being a company that was extremely content-centric towards being one that's a bit more product and technology-centric. So the line I like to say is, we used to be a content company that used technology. We're increasingly becoming a company that is a technology product company that uses content. So, we love content, we know it, we have a lot of it, we license a lot of it, we do that stuff, but what we think will be a lot of our differentiating factors and our value that we create will be in building great stuff. And that usually is based on an underlying product or technology level. So that's 1. 2, a la spirit of this new Times Internet with lots of sub-brands, we believe in small divisions. I don't like the idea that we're this one big company, because big companies are slow, they're bureaucratic, they have lots of processes, this, that, and so I can't say it's all gone yet, but increasingly our move is towards structuring ourselves like a collective of a lot of smart, independent startups that have some benefit from a group company. So what I like to say is, rather than me being a CEO of a big business, I would love to think of myself like a chairman of 10 businesses that have their own CEOs, so to speak. And increasingly we're moving that way.
But one of the things
Let me finish.
Okay.
So that's 2. 3 is, in the spirit of these being sort of standalone operating sort of teams, we're also very open to the idea that they could be separate businesses, right? So we're open to the idea that some of these, to scale and to actually hit the levels they need funding of serious amounts, they need a lot of independence, they need independent management, independent boards, and so forth. And frankly, I'm okay with that, right? I mean, I think that's a very healthy trajectory for any of these businesses. Those are the major ones, I think. There was one more I forgot.
So,
anyways, yeah.
So how does this play out? Because you're talking about becoming as nimble and agile as a startup, but then one big component of it is equity. So how open is BCCL and Times Internet Limited?
So it's a change. We used to be, everything was 100% ours, and I think today officially that's how most stuff is. But that's changing. Like for me, I would be very happy to see any of our potential standalone businesses raise independent capital, have equity for the team that's running and driving it. Obviously, Times will keep a meaningful share because we, start all the investment towards it, get it to a certain level. But let me put it this way: for these businesses to thrive, they need 2 things. Any business head needs 2 things. They need autonomy and they need incentive. Right, so incentive can be a personal, emotional incentive to have the freedom, and autonomy is related to incentive in a lot of situations, right? If I'm not as autonomous, I don't feel as much of a drive for what I'm doing. So one is to create a greater sense of autonomy for any business head or anybody running any of our businesses to take the decisions that are needed. And then 2 is to figure out how to create methods of participation in the success that happen. And I can't say it's all easy and it's all ready to do, because we aren't necessarily a startup that way, but increasingly what you'll see is most of our business units operate more and more in that style.
So, how does this impact people within your company in terms of that? This is a pretty massive change for them.
It's a change, right? I mean, this is what I can say is starting a new business is way easier than changing an existing business, and things take a little bit of time. But I mean, you should ask people. I mean, there's a lot of Times Internet people here. You should ask them what they think about where we are, where we're going. I think what's realistically happening today is most of our businesses were investing pretty significantly into the product and technology, putting a lot more ownership in product and technology people to take more decisions and to drive more of the strategy of our businesses. Hopefully they'll find that I'm not as involved. I'm getting less and less involved in the day-to-day of what they're doing so that they can do what they need to do. But by and large, it's a belief that really smart, independent, strong business leaders can drive these businesses better than I can, right? And that's the starting point for how we're running the business.
Okay. Now let's talk about each of the businesses that you've so far seeded. I mean, there's
Sure.
one that's Box, that's outside.
Yeah.
There's
Here's my shameless plug. You all have to go try Box TV. There's a little demo out there. Actually, I didn't even know, I haven't seen it yet, but there's an iPad app that I hadn't seen it till just now, but it's there. It's not, none of this is public, so if you do want to check it out, they're also giving invites out, I think, for people who want access. It's kind of closed right now, so check out the booth afterwards if you want.
So let's look at Box, let's look at Ghana. Are there any others in the mix that we don't know about yet that you want to talk about here?
There's some. So you have to think, Times Internet has a lot of different businesses, right? So TOI.com, Indiatimes.com, these are relatively mature in terms of, like they're not startups in that sense, right? They're going from a place to another place, whereas something like Ghana on Box is starting from, it was nothing a year ago to being something meaningful and having a different type of trajectory for themselves. In that kind of space where we're sort of saying, could this one day be a standalone company that has its own dramatic value and its own upside and strength of its own? Ghana and Box are the 2 major plays in entertainment, I would say, for us, music and video. We're doing some weird stuff with TimesDeal, which is pretty fun. That's changing a lot in how we think about local.
So let me talk. Was that a leak or
it was not on purpose?
Or was it on purpose? Because that's what everyone seems to think.
It's fine. Let me just put it this way. We were experimenting with going free. We were playing with different models. There was not an intent to put out a coupon code of that sort, but it was very interesting and it showed us a lot of information. Nonetheless, the product is free now, so it doesn't really matter. But For example, TimesDeal was one of 5 deal sites doing the same thing as every other deal guy, and it was fine. It was kind of boring. It was like, okay, let's do the same thing lots of people are doing. And it wasn't really like that exciting of a business case because, you spend a ton of money to set up a big sales force that goes and gets these deals, and you earn like a really small commission of each deal. And there's so many players, so the commission doesn't really go up much and all. So it was an okay business. It was fine, but it was boring. So we decided we'll just do something more fun, and we said we're not making that much money from it, so let's just give it away. Let's just not make any money from it and see what happens. And so we converted ourselves from having you have to pay for the deal up front to saying you don't have to pay anything for the deal, and then you pay the merchant for whatever you're supposed to pay them. It's been a week. The signs are really, really positive in terms of consumption. Obviously, there's no business case to it right now, but...
No, so then do you end up charging the merchants instead of charging the customers?
No, we're not charging anybody right now. I mean, to be honest, it's unfortunately, most of our businesses have these like hockey stick projections on revenues. This is one that was like this and then just went to 0. So the P&L is not the most exciting thing to look at, but it's fun. I mean, it's interesting. We'll see to me, it's way better to do something that could be a total bust or a total hit than to like sort of trudge along. And I think that's the spirit of what we were doing here. Middle players don't really matter, right? So you either got to do something that's going to make you a leader in whatever you're doing, or do something different, or define a new space, or you just shouldn't do it. So we said let's do something like that with TimesDeal.
So which businesses have hockey stick?
All of it. It's an internet business. Anybody hears P&L will have some eventual hockey stick of sorts, but. Fortunately, I think the way I look at it is, let's say we've got 10 businesses with really aggressive targets and goals for what they're doing. If 5 or 6 of them, or even less than that, let's say 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them are able to actually deliver on that level of performance, there's a great upside to that, right? There's a great opportunity that those create. And for the ones that aren't necessarily there, then we'll keep retweaking it, right? For us, I think one of the nice things about working at Times Internet is we're trying to create this balance between being an entrepreneur, having that entrepreneurial spirit, being responsible for your business, running your business, doing something interesting, having the fundings, whatever it is. But there's also some sense of security that, like, look, if you're a really good performer, but the business model didn't necessarily pan out, we've got so many things going on. There are more than enough opportunities that we can, continue to explore.
So you're okay with some of the businesses dying?
Yeah, they will. I mean, they have to, right? I mean, if you expect every internet business you run to succeed, you're naive, right? Or you're just playing really boring bets, right? Really, really low-risk things.
So let's look at the bets you've made, right? TimesDeal, Ghana, Box. What will it take for them to become profitable? And particularly if you look at Ghana, look at Spotify or any of the music streaming businesses, none of them really make money.
None of them make money right now. Although I'd say Netflix, I think, makes a marginal amount of money in the U.S. The truth is that these are not businesses today that we're measuring on their profit. I mean, there's no doubt that if we did, they would be horrible businesses at this moment to invest in. Let me put it this way: if you ask what are the goals for the Ghana team, which we've all sort of aligned on, it is to have millions and millions and millions of users right now, right? And so if you look at the market of what's out there today, all music services in India are basically free. And so for us to come out there and say we need to break even in a year or do something ridiculous like that just doesn't make sense. And so it's a risky bet in that sense because you do have these high costs in licensing content and all. We think that there are mechanisms to resolve that in the future. Like we think that content costs will rationalize like they did in the TV industry or in the radio industry where content costs become logical. But they happen only when you're at a certain scale. Like you can't be a small player asking for your costs to go lower. You have to be a big player that has enough relevance and clout in terms of music consumption or video consumption that you can work with a licensing partner in a more meaningful conversation. So my point is today for Box TV in Ghana, we're not really measuring we have sort of a budget of what we're ready to spend on it. And the business head basically says you've got X and you got to go run with it and make it work and get to a certain level. And we've got lots of resources that we put in behind it as well, but it's not being measured on its profit today.
So in terms of your licensing of content model, how is that working out versus creating your own content? And in particular, how is the industry reacting in the sense this is Times and let's take news for example. Are competing news businesses willing to work with you because you have Times now and you have ET now?
It's just, I think you're mixing the word content to mean a lot of different things, right? So news content is very different from entertainment content, different from music content. The economics of it, the value of it, different things about it are very different. So for Ghana, I mean, we already license music for Radio Mirchi, for Zoom, for a lot of things in the group. So for labels to work with us on an online property is a very natural extension. For video, we license for movies now already. So again, it's a natural extension there. And I think most media players, as much as we're all competitive and doing our own thing, you know, we sort of acknowledge the fact that we're going to compete in places, collaborate in places, and usually it's fine. I mean, very rarely has it. I can't think of most. Let me put it this way: most deals that we have not done have not been because of some like issue between, you know, media companies being rivals or something. It's, economics maybe didn't make sense, or the term understandings didn't make sense, or something like that.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
That's it.
Well, you want to be the technology company, but end of the day, the talent does not, or traditionally have not yet perceived you as a technology destination. You guys are known as more of entertainment or content business. What kind of plans did you have to build in this sort of technology destination culture?
I mean, that's changing a lot more than you think. The guy sitting next to you is our COO, Gautam. He was our former CTO. So he's very closely involved in driving a lot of our business. If you look, half of the people in this audience that are from our group are all part of our leadership technology team. I think in the last year, we've probably hired like 30 or 40 people from IITs. Like I think something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, right? This year, you know, in the next couple of months, we're going to be doing a lot of on-campus recruitment out of technical institutions. The thing about us that's different, and hopefully what people will perceive us as different from sort of a developer or technology community is, we're building fun stuff. We're building really cool stuff. Most places in India, you don't get that luxury, right? And you know, if you join a Wipro or an IT company, you're a services guy who's building for some client somewhere, and you know, are billed on an hourly basis. If you join like a big enterprise company like an Accenture or a Microsoft or something like that, you're an enterprise utility salesperson in a lot of cases. And if you join a lot of the multinational internet companies in India, like, you know, a company that ends with Google, and other ones like that, you know, there's some work, but a lot of it is on the sales and marketing side. Right? Most of the products are still built out of California or places like that. And then there are a lot of startups like 197 and others which are building, you know, specific businesses that they're passionate about. Times Internet is one of the few places in my mind where there is a diversity of products being built, whether it's a local product or a music product or a video product or a news product or a mobile product or lots of different things where we're building it. Like everything gets built out of our office 10 minutes from here in Gurgaon or from our office in Noida. There's no like if you want to build cool stuff, you can either start your own company which has its own, you know, risk reward, which is something people should evaluate, or, you know, that's one of the things we like to believe is something you get to do with us. Right? And it's not about an age thing. Like the head of Indiatimes.com is sitting around here somewhere. He's like 20 something, right? It has very little to do with hierarchies and age and working your way up a system. It's if you're good and you have a competence and a skill, you will get sort of the authority and autonomy to do good stuff.
In fact, you said transformation. It seems like what you're doing is you are avoiding what Indiatimes that we knew of, and you are adding few more things to it. Why are we calling it a transformation? Say that I'm adding some cool stuff to it.
Yeah, I don't think I said the word transformation. I mean, look, we're changing, and every business is changing, right? Everyone's evolving. Your business is evolving from being a VAS-centric one to a mobile internet one, and everyone's business changes. For us, one of the things I think limited our success in the past was that we didn't put enough emphasis and focus on product and technology. That's a big change for us now because we value the quality of a build. Like the value of the product, to me, is one of the biggest differentiators for us. And I think one of the things we do well, at least, or we're starting to get better at, is this really nice balance between quality design, consumer understanding content, and really good product technology. And it's not like tooting our horns, but seriously, go check out Box TV outside. What I think you'll find is that it's a really, really intuitive user experience, and it's got good content behind it, and it sort of blends a lot of the things you look for in an overall product pretty well. Now it's just starting. We have no idea if it'll work or not, but it's a good attempt, I think, from our side.
Thanks. So, any other questions?
Can I ask one?
Yeah, sure.
Hi. Let's say in Times Internet today you're running 5-7 businesses.
Sure.
Right? So how does the 8th business come in? Is it like you have a leadership team which comes across some ideas and then finds a team to do it, or spin off a unit and call it the 8 business, or how do you?
It's changing a lot, right? So right now there's probably 2 or 3 companies that we're talking to about, that are startups that are out there, about figuring out how to work together and build them together within our ecosystem, outside our ecosystem, something like that. So there's 1 or 2 that we're looking at sort of acquiring, and then giving that management team a lot of upside incentives based on the success they're able to build. There are some where we're looking at really smart businesses that are doing things and sort of JVing with them and putting some money in and then giving resources around it. To me, I really value autonomous structures. I think teams of 5 are often more productive than a team of 20. And teams of 50 become even less. I mean, the productivity per person reduces as your team size increases. So I put a lot of value on setting up effective, smaller, autonomous team structures. And to that extent, startups are really nice fits because they've been working in relatively nimbler structures because they have to. And if we can sort of take that spirit, that drive, that passion, that talent, and then bundle in some of the resources we have, like you can get access to millions of users pretty easily, and you can get promotion, and we can put some funding, and we've got some really smart strategy work. Our marketing team has learned across a ton of different businesses some of the best tactics around SEO and analytics and measurement and technology, and you need access to help. I mean, the goal for me is to say, can we build these independent businesses that benefit and leverage from common learnings and common skills? That's the core of it. Now, where those teams come from, it may be something we incubate in-house. It may be something where we find someone doing something really smart outside and give them the sort of opportunity to work on it, or enable them to do what they're doing.
Thank you.
So I'll ask a question, just a second. What's it like working with mobile operators? You had some history with Follow.
They're
from what I
awesome.
remember.
They're awesome. No. I don't really like it very much, to be honest. It's just a little painful sometimes. I think they're changing, and that's a good thing. And I've been pretty clear about this from my view, at least. We have a mobile VAS business which fortunately has developed a lot of relationships and works well with operators in that space. I think the challenge for operators is that they're so driven by revenue targets pretty immediately because their business is structured that way, and they've got a gazillion investors wondering what's going to happen to their business, to be fair to them. That it's hard for them to sort of experiment with new ideas. So certainly ones that don't necessarily have immediate revenue on day one, it's very hard for their systems aren't built for it. The other problem is that they're very piecemeal. Like this idea that Nandan's talking about building APIs that thousands of people or thousands of developers can plug into is relatively innovative. Whereas if you look at operators, the VAS system is very painful. You have to go and lobby and convince the guy, and then you have to convince every circle guy, and then you have to get 20 plugins done, and it takes 6 months to launch anything. And it just kind of sucks, right? If you're passionate about building something, you really should you want to minimize the amount of interference. And I think operators are getting better. I think they're starting to realize it. I know especially in the sort of mobile internet space, operators are starting to look at more simple relationships. For me, the revenue share is obviously something everyone cribs about. I wish I had more revenue share from the operator, and that's a supply-demand dynamic that'll get worked out in its own sense. To me, it's the ease. It's just hard. It should be a lot easier to work with operators. It should require a lot less. For example, we could have said Box TV, it's a video service. We could have said, let's go work with an operator and help get tons more reach because they've got hundreds of millions of customers and they can help with billing integration and this, that. But we were like, look, it's going to butcher the product. They're going to tell us that we need to brand it this, that. We're going to need, 10 guys are going to have 10 random inputs that we're going to have to do because otherwise they won't launch it. So we said, screw it, we'll just build our own product. We'll build something we think is really good. And if it's really good, then hopefully we'll start talking to operators at that point and they'll be willing to work with us on it. So I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question.
I'm going to get that in. I think Gautam had a question. He's written it down.
So Satya, I think what you've accomplished in your vision is pretty cool, and you're definitely pushing the envelope. My question is on your statement of saying that you're a product company, okay? Because I still feel that you're repurposing content on different platforms, but you're not really building new products, right? And this question is related to sort of what is your end goal? You and I talked about this a lot, but by creating, let's use your word, new products, or Box, if you call Box a new product. What's the end state here? What's your 5-year goal? What do you want to do when you amass this whole portfolio of different products or services?
So to me, I like the idea that each of these businesses has their own destiny, right? So I don't know what that is. I think the head of Box TV's job will be to continually define and figure out where Box TV goes and how it iterates. To me, the long-term state for something like Box, for example, is as you get to a certain scale, considering investing into content production at some point, but that's way far down the line for where they are now. I think your broad question is, the implication of your question is, like what's your goal and what you want to build, right? Like what are the big
There's two things. One is, are you really building products? I'm going to challenge that statement.
Okay.
And then, if you're not building products, I mean, first.
So let's define what is a product,
Yeah.
right? So to me, the difference, I think there's three components to, like, whatever, I guess you call it a product. There's content, product, and technology, right? So content is the stuff. Technology is the code. To me, product is that skill that interfaces between some sense of a business strategy, content, and technology. So like the way I think of it is, content is the stuff you read, product is the way you interact with it, right? So we spend a lot of time thinking about the methods of interaction and the mechanisms for interaction. Now, to your point, we aren't necessarily, like, so far, I don't think we've built anything that's completely different from anything ever in the world. And I think that's the implication.
Yeah, that's what I meant by a product. Like, to me, you've created cool delivery platforms, but still repurposing your content.
That's fair. And I think that today, that's a fair point, right? Which
Is that a direction you want to go to? Do you actually want to actually build products? Is that your...
I mean, definitely. That's what gets me excited, right? Today, we are working off of global proof cases that these models can work or could have some potential viability, although maybe the global ones haven't proven it yet. And that definitely inspires a lot of what we've started today, right? To me, the things that excite me the most right now are things that aren't necessarily, proven in any sense, right? So the sort of the metrics for what we look at right now is some of the new businesses we're evaluating are, one is, do they have a very mobile-centric strategy? Because we think that the scale there is really big. And then two is, does it have a potential to reach like 100 million users? Right? Those are like the two basic. So when you ask, our teams, when we meet companies that we're looking at, or we look at investments, or we think about businesses we're launching, those are the two basic criteria. And most of them are, some of them are, let's put 5 people on a team and let them go run with it and explore the idea. Some of them are a lot bigger investments and bigger, bets that we're considering in that space.
So one just last, I don't want to take too much time, but one product that you guys announced, or one service you announced, which I never really understood, but since you're talking about the 100 million, you announced something, an acquisition or something you're going to get in the Ayurvedic space a couple months ago.
Yeah, so it's an extension of our e-commerce business, right? So we've got Indiatimes Shopping as this horizontal e-commerce. One of our theories is that people will interact with e-commerce both at a horizontal and at a vertical level. So you've seen there's a few different sort of verticalized stores we've launched. We launched a Nokia store, we launched there's one or two others. Satvikshop.com is a store focused just around Ayurvedic and organic products, right? And again, that maybe isn't one where it's got like 100 million user capacity, but it fits some market need. Like even Box TV, right? Box TV has this potential scale one day to be this platform to deliver video across, 1 billion Indians. But today, the connectivity is not there. So we know that today our aspirations for Box TV are relatively more limited than what they may be, many years down the line. I mean, we're pretty honest about what we're doing. I don't think that we try to delude ourselves into saying that, we know the trajectories for each business. Let me put it that way.
Do you want to use this platform maybe to tell us something that you haven't told us about, any new products that may be coming out?
Well, I think you can see some of the, there's some cool stuff we're doing, and I hate you for putting me on the spot like that, but there's some cool stuff we're doing around integrating sort of online and offline experiences. I can't really go into it more than that, but there's, on one hand, we like to think of Times as a really independent company with its independent businesses that run and thrive on their own, but let's be honest about the fact we also have this incredible advantage of access to a ton of media, a ton of content, and a ton of users across media at times. And so one of the projects that we're working on out of our mobile team are ways to sort of create natural connections between some of the offline properties you work with and their online counterparts, and then also integrating an understanding of identity across them. I know that's vague and doesn't explain it, but please, just give me a couple of weeks, you'll see it, I promise. We're launching a lot of stuff. Like every few weeks you'll see something new we're doing, and some of them will work, some of them won't, but I appreciate the opportunity, but
So here's a question from Ram, who's shy about going to the mic. He's saying, why are there no popular titles or movies on box yet? Is it something to do with
Give
the
it a little-
licensing cost?
give it a little time. They're
But
everywhere.
you've acquired IPL, so why not movies? And it won't fly on revenues with
just go.
great titles.
What I would suggest: go try Box TV. See if you like the experience. Don't worry, the content's coming. It's not public yet. There's less than the reality of Box TV, which is really promising for us, is we haven't done much marketing. I mean, I'm talking about it in the forum, like this shitty mic.
So we're kind of running out of time. So
Anyway, my point is so Box TV has 100,000 invite requests without us having done anything about it. We've only opened it up to a few hundred people right now. You guys can get access to if you just go, drop their business card. So what I would suggest is right now, see the experience, give us feedback on that, tell us what you think. The content is we're doing a lot of work there, it'll show up. I mean, believe me, we're very cognizant of the fact that people like newer, better movies. It's coming. It's not like not on our radar that
So
way.
since we're all kind of putting you on the spot, what do you like about Savan?
They're mobile first, right? I mean, that's the best thing about them. I think we've done really well with Ghana on the web. Fortunately, I think Ghana's in a pretty strong position there. Savan and Dingana both have meaningful experiences and scale on mobile.
Is there something that you wish you would be doing that they do?
I wish we thought more mobile first. That's a big change that I kind of keep screaming about, but it's something that we're sort of evolving to. We're all a very internet-centric company. I sent a mail to all of our business heads like a week or two ago, and it was this article that I read where basically the first 500 words of the article was mobile. And so we just sort of have to shape our mind in that direction more. That being said, a couple more weeks, the Ghana app will come out. We'll see how it does. We're pretty bullish about what it can do. But I give credit to both Savan and Dingana on getting huge scale by being on mobile. I mean, that was the smart opportunity. We started web first and are now thinking mobile, and that's the challenge for us now.
So one last question. What do you think about First Post, and would you do something like that?
First Post is good in that they've created competition on web, right? I think that there's traditional newspapers and they're coming from a very different angle. I think to some extent they drive traffic and attention because they have really aggressive stories, and that's stuff that's traditional media traditionally hasn't been as aggressive as someone as them in that sense. Although we do our fair share of sort of
But
investigations.
you're mostly hands-off, right? In the sense that the content is coming from BCCL.
I don't work as much on that. That's really driven by our editorial team, which is BCCL and somewhat TIL centric. I think the thing that they're doing well is, they're creating attention with really a lot of aggression. It also, there's two sides to that sword, right? Because if you become too aggressive or too over the top in your headlines and things like that, you can hurt your credibility. That being said, right now, I don't think that's where their issue. I think they need to figure out how to get scale, because the economics of news businesses are kind of crappy in a lot of situations, and they have to figure out how. Because I mean, they may be getting some element of traffic, and I think they are, but it's a very hard business.
So why aren't you doing something similar, slightly more aggressive online?
But TOI is. I mean, you should see some of the stuff we're doing. Like, for example, you're going to start seeing a lot more opinion more prominently on TOI.com in the next few months. I think that'll be one of the big things we do. And to me, opinion is not like the opinion about something that happened 5 days ago. It's real-time relevant analytics and analysis and opinion. That's going to become increasingly, ask the TOI head who's sitting right over there. That's one of our big focus areas. We don't like to pigeonhole the brand expectation to be only a certain thing that way.
How do you become more real-time? Last question, we've already out
How
of
do you
time.
become more real-time? You mean in the content production?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of priorities, right? I mean, if we start talking to all of our print counterparts and we're like, look, something big's happening, we need to figure out how to get you to be more interactive with creating stuff for the web. And it's happening. I mean, one of the nice things for me, let me be little bit, overly candid here. Like, I'm fortunately in a position where I can drive a lot of stuff in Times Internet and sort of enable projects and put people in place to run things. But when it comes to activating group resources, it's easier for me to do than it is for most people. And so it gives me this luxury of saying we've got some really crazy ideas that can go across media that normally are really hard to implement because people have different P&Ls and priorities and strategies that, I can push from when we need to, and hopefully things will happen.
Let's hope there's more of a push coming in.
Okay.
And thanks for your time.
No, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.